Welcome, everybody. My name is Ramon Santamaria. I'm an electronic engineer, a professor, entrepreneur, and for the last few years, I've been developing tools and technology for the video games industry. Today, I'm going to present one of those technologies, that it's raygui, that it's an immediate mode CUI library intended for tools development. Actually, this same presentation, it's a web application, as you can see, that's running on web. And that's the tool. And the presentation itself has been created with raygui to demonstrate the possibilities and the versatility of this tool. Okay, so let's start. What can you do with raygui? What is exactly raygui? Well, raygui actually is an immediate mode library. It means that it does not store information internally. It's stateless, as said. So actually, all the UI system is based on small functions that are self-contained, that can not only process all the inputs, but also draw all the control in immediate mode. Here is an example. This piece of code in C actually defines a button at the same time that draws the button and receives back the state of the button. It receives if the button has been pressed. If the button has been pressed, is enable a variable that's on the user side. And if that variable is enabled, it actually shows another immediate mode UI control, that it's a message box with some information. You can see that's actually that code generates this button. And when you press the button, you see it generates a GIF message box. Okay, that's all the code needed for the button and the message box, including in itself all the logic. Okay, that's an immediate mode library. Also, the library is really, really high performance. As the backend, it uses another of my technologies, that is raylib, that it's a popular C library, very high performance in itself. It's code in C. And that code is compiled through mscripten to WebAssembly, allowing to run in a very performant way, all that code on a web platform, on a browser. Also, thanks to being a C library, it is multi-platform. As I said, as you can see, it can run on web, but on a browser, but it can also run exactly the same code, can be compiled for Windows, Linux, Mac OS, FreeBSD, and even embedded systems, Android, Raspberry Pi, more esoteric operating systems like Haiku, or even other operating systems that are supported by raylib, by the backend. In that regards, the library, raygui, being an immediate mode library, has a very, very low memory footprint. Actually, the library only requires about 145 kilobytes of memory, of RAM memory. That's the total requirement for the library. And that considers the styles provided. It's a global variable containing 348 properties for the styles that actually you can change. The icons the library provides, as you can see here, those icons are provided by the library. There are up to 256 icons defined, but you can add more if you want. And also the font. The font actually is the most memory expensive element, because it includes several fonts for multiple languages. But on all the styles defined, actually you can see here several styles that can be changing in real time. You see? All those styles are up to 136 kilobytes, including the font texture atlas and all the properties of the atlas for proper rendering of the font. So total memory for footprint is 145 kilobytes. Also, the library includes a set of support tools that allows to edit styles, as you have seen right now. There is a styles editor. Actually, all the styles you have seen have been created with that styles editor. The styles editor also runs online, and it has been also created using raygui. We will see more about that. There is also another tool that is an icons editor. That it's a tool that has been used to create all the icons that you can see in the buttons and all around. And finally, there is a third tool that is a layout editor. I have to mention that raygui has not an auto layout mechanism. Actually, the layout must be defined by the user. So the user has full control over all the layout or how everything it's placed around. Okay. We'll see a bit more about those tools later on. And finally, everything you have seen, raylib, raygui, and all the tools that interact with raygui, all the support tools, everything is free and open source, and you can find it here in this link. That's about the features. What about the controls? Okay, here you have a live example of some or most of the controls available in raygui. You got labels. Actually, those things are labels. You got drop-down buttons, checkboxes. You also have spinners. You got a text box. This is a test. Actually, you can place the cursor, everything. You got a text box. You got combo boxes, different states, Gillis view, toggle groups. Also, you got a color picker selector with alpha bars and hue bars, sliders, progress bar, scroll panels, grids. You even have a bit more rich text box. Okay, those are the controls available. Actually, an interesting point about the controls is that all the controls actually are just a function call. That's what immediate mode UI gives you. And all the controls have these, those are actually the functions, and those are the structure of the functions for every control. It's the GUI control name, the rectangle defining the rectangle of the control, the text contained in the control, and finally some control state variable that should be returned to the user. For example, in the case of list view, the selected item. The same for the toggle group. In the case of the panel, it returns the scroll bar position, the scrolling. Yeah, those are the variables returned. There are usually 1-2 variables as much for every control. And finally, we have a return variable that is some internal state for the control that is returned as required as an integer. So as you see, actually it's pretty simple, the usage of those of that immediate mode UI system. That's regard the controls available. As you see here, actually, you can scale them, move, whatever. Well, that's an interactive screen. And yeah, that's it. About the styles, I've already shown you what's available, but by default, I created a set of styles, like a showcase, showing how everything can be changed in the style. For example, that's a label with a specific size, that's a label with a specific color. Here you got, well, different styles with different fonts. You can change the font size, spacing, line spacing for multiple lines. You can configure mostly every style aspect that you can imagine for the UI. As you can see, those are some of the styles I created. Personally, I really like that pixel art UI style, retro UI style for my tools, and all the styles I created follow those guidelines. But actually, you can load any standard font. Well, you can customize the style for your needs to not be so retro. That's it. So that's what we have about the styling. About the support tools, as I said, there are 3 support tools that allow to configure any raygui application developed for your needs. Actually, there are 3 tools: the GUI styler, the GUI icons, and the GUI layout. The 3 tools are free and open source, and actually they are available online. They are not only available on GitHub. Actually, here you can see the tool on GitHub, but also you got the tool published online that can be executed. And one interesting point is that you can configure the style live, and in the same tool you are seeing live how the tool style is changed. For example, if I change the border color, if I change the base color of the controls, text color, for example, to now something like that. You can change some specific control that affects all the controls, but you can change some specific control. For example, the button. If I want the button a bit different, now border color. I can change only the buttons now, and well, you can change all the properties. You can also change the font. Well, you have full control not only over all the controls as a default style, but also over every specific control. Okay, you can drag and drop a TTF font and it gets loaded and everything. That's the GUI styler. But you also have the icons editor. It's a simple icons editor. That's it. So here you can edit the icons. Those are the icons that are by default included in raygui. There are 256 slots for icons. Actually, at the moment, there are still some slots not filled. Some contributors add new icons. Actually, all those icons have been added by contributors lately. And well, at the moment, there are 256, but that can be incremented to whatever number. Yeah, and that's an icon editor, you see. Yeah. So, and finally, probably the most useful and the most interesting tool, considering that raygui has no automatic layout system, that the layout must be created by the user. It's a layout creator tool. For example, we can place here controls. We have, actually it can be edited. We can place text box, for example, and make it bigger. You can create the layout, and actually it's interesting that all the layouts are referenced by an anchor point, and you can ask how, if it's an immediate mode library that is actually only functions calls, how can I export that layout? Actually, that's the interesting, when you hit the export current layout, actually generates code. It generates automatically the C code for that layout. You can configure if it's C code, if it's containing a header-only file, if you want to export anchors, rectangle. Well, you have several configuration options to export the code in the way you want it to be added to your project. That's the GUI layout. Actually, with that tool, you can create auto-contained layouts. For example, file browser, importer, exporter, window. You can create auto-contained windows that can be exported as a self-contained file to be added to any project. That's one thing that I do with my projects. Okay. Beside the support raygui tools, we also have all those tools. Actually, as I said, for the last few years, I've been working not only on those technologies, raylib, raygui, and some other technologies, but I've also been, for the last 5 years, I've been focused on tools development using my technologies. Here, there is a set of tools that I have created. Most of them are published and can be used online for free. And some are just internal for me. For example, that's a tool to create tools in a visual way, etc. That's a text editor that has not been published yet. Well, some tools have not been, are not ready, but are not published, but most of them are published and actually can be used online. For example, that's a sound editor that has been created also with raygui. It's also free and open source. But then you have more complex tools like textures viewer. Well, actually, this tool it's like a canvas to view images, apply shaders, apply transformations to the images, and organize them in a kind of a board. Here you have some example images, because I got no images loaded, but you can see what can be done with that tool. It runs online, but it's also available to download as a standalone tool. That's the multi-platform capabilities of raygui. Texture packer, steganography tool, resource packer. For example, that tool is intended to package, for video games, to package resources, images, text, shaders, models, audios, to pack tools into a self-contained package with different compressions, encryptions for every file. And you also have a installer creator and etc. Actually, the set of tools available, it's quite wide, and actually it proves that those technologies work, and they work on web, and they have been used in production for about 5 years now. And yeah, that's it. And okay, wait. Let's go full screen. And well, that would be my presentation of raygui. I hope you enjoy it, you like it. And now, if there is any question, feel free to ask. Thank you very much. Yeah, that's it.
First things first, let's cover this poll. So the question was, are you using any WASM compiled library for your tools or apps development? So we got no, I didn't know of any, 57%. No, I know some, 14%. And a hard yes, 29%. What do you think? Is that about what you're expecting, or is there any surprises here?
Actually, yes, it was 50% of users. Probably it's higher than what I expected, but I expected at least 20%, something like that. So yeah, it's
nice.
quite close.
Very cool. Yeah, I've heard of WebAssembly ages ago, and I have used some of the libraries, and they're so powerful, and there's just like infinite potential for the things you could use with WASM, right?
Yeah, actually, I started using it 10 years ago. So yeah, it's
10 years.
10 years ago,
that's a long time. Yeah, for the software to become robust and solid and almost bug-free, like that's a long time. Good, mature software. Alrighty, let's get to these listener questions. Let's start with this one here. I'm going to promote a question. It'll pop up in our list here. What inspired you to create raylib?
Well, actually, raylib was created for education. I was teaching video games development, and I needed a simple tool to teach game development, and I was checking the tools on the market, and it was something that was low level, but also simple and easy to use. And I couldn't find exactly what I was looking for. So Raylib was a weekend project, actually. I decided to just do some simple graphics in 2D, like shapes and bit of text. Yeah, simple graphics. And that was the origin of Raylib. Then I started using it with my students, and they were really, really happy with it. And it becomes super popular, super fast, actually. My students actually love it and start creating small games with it. And that was the origin of Raylib.
That's great. The best projects all start as weekend projects, like for yourself, don't they? And then they turn into like, does anyone else need this? And you get this resounding yes from your developer community. And then you're like, okay, well, I guess this is a legitimate tool now. That's awesome.
It's 10 years now working on it.
That's so cool. Here's another question. What are the limitations of an immediate mode user interface library in comparison to retained mode UI libraries, which is probably what most JavaScript UI libraries are? So what are the limitations that you perceive? Oh, I should promote this question.
Well,
it should pop up.
Being an immediate mode library, it's stateless, so you cannot keep a lot of information. You cannot keep information about the state of the controls, the different UI elements. What does it mean? It means that you are somewhat limited in things like transitions, effects, visual effects that today are quite common in all kind of applications, some fade, some shadow, some glow, some kind of transition, movements. You are limited. That's the main limitation. But, well, in the other side, you are not storing any information. You are just processing the inputs and drawing the control all together in a simple call, in a simple function call. So that's those are the benefits.
Very cool. Here's a great question: is what are the benefits of using a C library when talking about WASM versus a web UI like a JavaScript library? Like, are there speed benefits you get from using C through WASM, or
it's mainly performance. You are it depends on what you are trying to do, but for example, today if you are doing 3D applications or some kind of applications that really require a lot of processing, using a WebAssembly library, a C library compiled into WebAssembly gives you that extra performance that is needed. Also, if you try to port some desktop applications into web, I mean, resources, applications that really require a lot of resources. Yeah, WebAssembly is probably a very good option to get that extra performance on web. And another point is that sometimes you've got applications that are code for desktop, and WebAssembly gives you the option to publish the same code base into a web application. That's really very useful. Actually, the multi-platform option, it's great. You code once in one library, in one language, and you can publish the application into many platforms with the same base code.
That's the dream, right? That's amazing. Yeah, because we all work hard on our software, and we want it to, if we want it there, we want to be able to distribute it as many places as we possibly can. And sometimes we're kind of isolated to like, this code I'm using is only usable here or something. So it's great when there's tools like WASM that really enable us to get our code everywhere. That's a pretty good segue into this question. Let me promote it real quick. How big is a WASM application created with raygui raylib?
Actually, it's pretty small. All the applications I got published are usually, if we only consider the WebAssembly code, it's about 300 kilobytes. it's probably the full application is probably smaller than many images that you can upload in a web page today. So that's quite amazing. It's just
That's
about
great.
200, 300 kilobytes. And yeah, that's it. Then you got the launch page that is an HTML, and you also have some glue code that is JavaScript. And the glue code could be another 100 kilobytes, something like that. But everything together, it's about maybe 400, 500 kilobytes. So yeah, it's quite small. But
That's
actually,
very impressive.
The startup, it's immediate startup. And it runs in the local device. So you just download and it runs.
Yeah.
So you don't need to keep connecting to some server or anything if you don't want to.
I think we have time for one more question. This is an exciting one. What are your future plans for raylib?
That's a difficult one. At the moment, it's most of the work that I'm doing with raylib. It's in maintenance and keeping the library as much stable as possible in all the supported platforms. I try to minimize adding because it's very difficult to maintain. But yeah, it keeps improving, growing, and in the future probably it would be available for more platforms. That's a bit the future plans for the library.
That's great. Yeah, get it on more platforms. Take advantage of that cool tech. Well, thanks so much for working on that awesome software over the years, and thank you for your amazing talk. Thanks for being here.
Thank you very much. It was great being here.